patterns and new normal. The new normal we're also talking about is not just in the economic aspect of life, it's not just in the way we interact, but even in the way we go to school, and of course the way we go to the market, and most importantly the way we want to do this next election. So we're talking about it, we have seen it happen in other parts of the world, to some extent, and there's nothing wrong if we can replicate it here. But in replicating it, sensitization is key. Bring the citizenry, the voters in this circumstance, to a very good level of understanding so that they can know effectively what is amiss, and adapt to the new situation, as the case could be.
All right, the second aspect of my question will be about the Executive Order 10. And of course, those concerned, especially the legislature members of the State Assembly, are already giving thumbs up to Mr. President for making this happen. Talking about the theory of separation of power, they're saying it's not only in terms of the functionality of instrument of office, but also in terms of the purse.
Yeah, but executive order, it's a tool in the presidential democracy, and we've had lots of it in the American presidential system, particularly under President Obama. And when Trump came in, he also used it a lot. And back home, I remember at the time, our president also started signing some executive orders. And I remember also the vice president signed a couple, while he was acting. And for the president to have signed this again, it's a very good instruction for us that, yes, we have laws with their expectations, but there's a reason, there's a sense in reminding the populace or in reminding stakeholders on the need to comply with these laws. The laws are not there for fun. The laws are not there just to be items on paper. They are there to be executed. So one function of executive order is a reminder of the need for us, to be guided by law, by constitution. Ordinarily, there wouldn't have been need for the executive order if separation of power, which is ingrained in the democratic process, had been our pattern, if it had been our particularity. But unfortunately, we've had a system where we have been witnessing deviation, orchestrated by some governors, not all of them, some governors, who are literally emperors, appropriating the functions, the financial functions of the judiciary and the legislature. This has been some kind of the unfortunate pattern which this executive order has come to remind us as being wrong. But again, appreciated that it's been passed, but the next thing is for us to ensure that there's implementation, because there are ways in which we circumvent laws, orders and processes in this country. This one shouldn't be one more victim of those circumventions.
All right, let's move on now. I spoke about this last week, while we were still talking about this program, we were talking about the operational conundrum that we are faced with. We want the economy to become buoyant. We want to energize it. At the same time, we need to keep to protocols of safe distance and all that. And the industry has to begin to refire to fuel the economy and push us in the right direction, especially with the statistics and the information coming from the National Bureau of Statistics as we are, collectively staring at some form of recession or the other and in the coming months. So, in view of this, how do we begin to maintain a delicate balance between health and wealth?
Yeah, I think it's a kind of quandary that we are in on a global scale. And like I always want to say, Nigeria is not alone in this quandary. We've even seen sophisticated countries trying to battle through these. We hear Donald Trump, President of America, for instance, saying almost every day that they have to get back to work. The tension is there. One of the strongest, if not the strongest economy in the world, just came crashing just like that on account of this pandemic. Regrettable as it could be. And look at Brazil too. Brazilian President Bolsonaro, he's reportedly not managing the pandemic well because he doesn't believe that he should privilege the management of the pandemic above the livelihood of people. And that debate has also crept into this country, where economics have said our economy cannot afford to be locked down for too long. So it's a major tension between managing our economy and staying safe from this pandemic. But how do we reconcile the situation? How do we find an equilibrated situation? The thing is just to continue what we're doing, to test, trace, isolate, and treat. Isolate and treat while we continue with our lifestyle, continue with our way of life. And what it means is that we need to come to the realization that this pandemic may not just go, just like the flu. Just like the Spanish flu didn't go away, HIV didn't go away, but mankind, humanity devised ways of coping with it. That's what I think is going to be our lot with respect to this coronavirus. Fisayo.
All right, moving on. The governors of the Southeast Zone have agreed to engage the Nigerian Center for Disease Control on the need to scale up testing of coronavirus in the zone, as the forum directs all Igbos living outside Igboland to obey all extant COVID-19 orders, especially the presidential directive on interstate movement. In the communique issued by the forum after its meeting in Enugu, the governors also requested the Inspector General of Police to abide by the agreement reached with him on community policing composition in the Southeast Zone. The report.
In a 7-point communique presented by the chairman of the Southeast Governors Forum and governor of Ebonyi State, Dave Umahi, the governors directed the people of the Southeast Zone to comply with the ban on interstate travels, the hygiene protocols and directives of their home governors and those of where they live, as the forum engages the National Center for Disease Control on the need to scale up COVID-19 testing in the Southeast. On security matters, the governors disagreed with the community policing composition formula contained in a recent communication to them from the Inspector General of Police.
The recent communication from the Inspector General of Police to our governors of Southeast on community policing composition is not in keeping with the agreement we reached with him during his last visit to the Southeast. In the circumstance, we cannot begin implementation of it until the program reflects our earlier agreement with the IGP. The Southeast governors and their leaders request the IGP to please revert to our initial agreement reached on community policing.
The forum, however, commended President Muhammadu Buhari on the progress of work at the Second Niger Bridge and the Akanibiam International Airport, Enugu. In Enugu.
Was what could be described as putting aside political differences for the progress of Plateau State. Members of the National Assembly caucus from that state were at the government house, Rayfield in Jos, to present their donation to Governor Simon Bakulalong towards the fight against COVID-19. The delegation, which was led by the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Ahmed Idris Wase, donated an undisclosed sum of money to Plateau State COVID-19 Trust Fund so as to assist government deal with the pandemic. The Deputy Speaker said the donation was in appreciation of the measures taken by the state government so far in dealing with the pandemic through several measures.
I've been watching clearly. The only digital government, if I would say, that be able to man our security force using ICT. I think this will have to thank you much. Congratulate you for all the good effort. We have been around in terms of supporting the government and individual capacity on a constituency level, to state level. But we thought it's not going to be okay if we don't come as a family first to appreciate you, to tell you that we're working together with you independently, and to ensure that whatever we're going to do, we did little that God has done also. We support you to ensure that practice is safe and our people are safe.
Plateau people are law-abiding. And in this case, I must use the opportunity before you to thank the entire people of Plateau State for their cooperation. Otherwise, we would not have reached where we are today. And today, the leaders are back with us. And want to, on behalf of the good people of Plateau State, to thank you and to also express our gratitude for your performances at the National Assembly. We also follow, just as you follow us here, we are following you there.
Right, in this fight against a raging pandemic, we've seen that issues of politics have been put aside, and political leaders across the divide doing what they can to make sure that at least we batten down the hatches for this rampaging disease, to blow over. And then, of course, there's also the need to begin to re-energize the local economy, to begin to think about local competence in different sectors of Nigerian economy.
Absolutely. If there's one thing that has reminded us of our collective humanity in the last century is just this pandemic, and perhaps it's nature's way of letting us know that we have an element of sameness, of commonness, but again, we need to also know that the world is on a recoil. We were talking about globalization before now, but we're witnessing deglobalization. The world is we are being forced to look inward, either at the national or the individual family level. The pandemic has forced us to come back to ourselves as nationals, as a country, as a family, and even looking inwardly as human beings. That's the essence, really. And in doing that, we're also being forced to come together, to know ourselves, appreciate ourselves, irrespective of ideological, religious, cultural, or political divides. That's the essence of it. And of course, not just in Nigeria, we have seen it playing around the world. So if we are witnessing increased level of synergy, it's also a good lesson for us, sort of. But again, the important thing is how do we think through things and live our life through this health crisis. That's the challenge we have in our hands, and so far so good. Humanity is not doing badly, and I don't think that the pandemic will see the last of us. It's not the first pandemic we're going to see, and it's not likely going to be the last. But we just hope that in this century there shouldn't be yet another one.
All right, before I let you go, tomorrow we'll be celebrating Children's Day.
Yeah.
They are one of the most affected at this time. Schools shut down, many conversations across the world on how to reopen and still maintain, a healthy, system. You being, an educationist and somebody in the system, how would you, untangle this conundrum, opening of schools and beginning to impact on education, especially putting into consideration the Nigerian environment. It's not a completely urbanized environment. Yeah,
not completely urbanized, but of course there are so many things that are out there in terms of sophistication that we have also imbibed, which is technology of communication, technology of learning. And of course, a lot of institutions have resorted to virtual learning, like my institution, for instance. And of course, some schools abroad have gone virtual. E-learning combined with virtual learning and all of that, is the in thing now. Of course, we have deficiency in infrastructure, but there's nothing wrong if we begin to introduce our children to these things using the opportunity of this crisis, so that they will know that yes, physical life is predominated in the pre-COVID-19 period, but of course, other than physical life, there's another life that is also very important, and which is virtual life. If we can introduce them to it at this time, like the education minister said one time, not bad, because we cannot leave them for too long in the lurch, because they are a critical sector, a critical section of the population, and it's going to be unhealthy for the future of our country, or even the future of the world, if our children are left continuously fallow in terms of feeding their mind and helping them to grow their mind, on things they should definitely know before they become adults. It's very unfortunate that we are witnessing this, but of course, it's also a test on our creative ability, and we have to rise up to the occasion.
All right, that has been Political Update for today. Many thanks to Dr. Adeni Adebayo, Associate Professor and Head of Department of the Department of Communication, Mass Communication, Business University, for coming. That's Political Update for today. God will be back on Friday to give you a fresh package, and of course, Friday is also the 29th of May, so you know what that exactly is as far as democracy is concerned. We'll be looking at Nigeria's steps so far from 1999. So join the conversation. My name is Fisai Ogunfi, thanking you for being a part of it and urging you to stay on the Nigerian Television Authority, where we'll give you unbeatable news, previews, reviews, and interviews. Bye-bye now.